What is going on, guys? We are back on another episode of DC Bronzies. I'm Tyler. Hope you guys are doing very good on this Friday night or Saturday morning, whenever you are watching this video. But today we're going to get right into it. We're going to be talking about some of the smallmouth baits that I'm going to be using this spring and this summer for some green bay smallmouth. Obviously, a lot of these baits, they work for largemouth as well, and honestly they work all over for smallmouth, but specifically for me, green bay smallmouth. And these are going to be some baits that are going to be imitating gobies and different bait fish, and just some baits that, one, I'm going to be trying out this spring and summer, two, that I've already used that I know are very effective. And yeah, we're just going to kind of go through those, and I'm going to show you what I'm going to be using. All right, to start off, don't really need to say much about this, but obviously the Nedrig by ZMan was one of my most successful bass catching baits last summer, and I had just started using it last summer for the first time. It is the best bait that I've caught smallmouth on so far in my smallmouth fishing experience. So that has been my go-to bait for smallmouth, especially in the summer. Maybe not so much in the spring pre-spawn and such, but for sure one of my top summer baits. Along with that, ZMan came out with these new TRD Cross, which I'm going to show you guys here real quick. Apparently these are also really good. They go on the Nedrig heads. One thing I love is just how durable the ZMan plastic is. Looks great, but the plastic, as you can see, is so stretchy, so these claws aren't going to fall off easily. Fish aren't going to be able to pull off those claws from the bait. And overall, it's just a really flexible, a lot of action on the bait, and they're supposed to float too, so when they're on the bottom, the claws are supposed to come up like a crayfish would in real life. So those are another Nedrig bait that I will be trying out. I have not used these yet, but I'm sure they're going to be just as effective as the TRD. So those were some baits that I will be using kind of more for the summer. Actually, I've got a couple more. This one is probably one of the baits I'm most excited about. I've heard a lot of hype about it, and I saw it at the store the other day, figured that I would pick it up, is the Megabass Dark Sleeper. This thing is in the 3/8 ounce, so it's the smallest size that Megabass makes. Like I said, I've heard a couple things about it, that it's a really good bait. I've heard that from the guys over at Tactical Bassin, their YouTube page, if you guys have heard of them. But I mean, this looks just like a goby. A lot of those gobies on the bottom in Lake Michigan, so I don't see why this bait shouldn't just destroy the fish. I think it'll be really good. This will probably be also more of a summer bait that I'll be using, but of course the fish are eating gobies in the pre-spawn, I'm sure too. So all right, another specific brand that I've been wanting to try is Xzone. Seen a lot of their baits. They're more catered towards smallmouth, so I was interested in trying these out. I want to try their Dropshot Finesse Slammers. Also another kind of a goby color. I get a lot of goby colors in my baits. Yeah, here's kind of the profile of them. They've got that thins out and then it gets to a wider tail. They're really sensitive. A lot of action to them, you can tell. So those will be really good in the water. I believe I've got the big limit color. I got a couple packs of those, so I think those will be pretty effective in the summer. I've been wanting to give them a try, so that's kind of been the plan for those. On top of that, I also got some Xzone tubes in the 309 color. I'm not a big tube fisherman, but I wanted to give it a shot. These are the small tubes in a 2.75 inch size, which I'm not a big fan of big tubes. I like finesse fishing and smaller baits, so I really did like that size there. And I think, you know, of course, that kind of that goby color again with like a white bottom, so kind of like the belly of a goby. So this is a lot smaller. This is a little bigger than a Ned rig. It's fished a little bit differently, but still on the bottom. So I'm curious to see if I get maybe more bites or bigger bites using a tube versus a Ned rig. Like I said, I'm not a big tube fisherman. I've done a little bit of it, but I haven't had a lot of success just because I haven't really focused on it. But I'm interested to try those too, because I think those tubes in a smaller size could do really good for these smallmouth in the summer. The next bait, more of a pre-spawn bait, but of course works all year round, is a swim bait. And I went out and I want to try a new brand this time. I've got these Jackal Rhythm Waves in the 3.8 inch. I've used Kitex. I really like the action on the Kitex. They catch fish, but my biggest complaint was the fact that they're just not real durable. Especially I'm trying to remember if it's the impacts, the slim impacts. There's like the fat and all that, but there's one of the skinnier ones that worked for me really well last spring in the pre-spawn, but the bass would just bite the tails off in like a second. So I'm really hoping that these Jackals are a little bit more durable. I've read that they're pretty comparable to the Kitex, so I'm hoping that maybe the bass won't destroy these quite as much. And for those swim baits, I've got some Owner Football jigs. I've used these before. These though are in the 1/8 ounce. I used heavier sizes before, but you know, I'll be fishing rock, so I got the football style jig to put on the swim baits, and I'll probably use these for grubs as well. But I really like the Owner hooks. They're sharp, they're strong, and overall the jig head, they're just good jig heads. So I'm curious to see if the 1/8 ounce will be a little bit better than that heavier size I was using last year. I'll be able to reel a little bit slower with the 1/8 ounce, and maybe the slower action will trigger a bite for more of those pre-spawn smallmouth. Getting into my box of baits that I already have is some hair jigs, specifically marabou hair jigs. So I tied these myself actually. I've got a couple different colors. I've got a green pumpkin and I've got a brown, or like I guess more of like a reddish brown. I'm probably going to be making a black at some point, just after I see if these are effective. But these are actually on, I believe, Owner Ned rig heads in like a 1/16 of an ounce. So super finesse. I know that guides use these like crazy for those spring smallmouth, and they're supposed to be super effective. So I tied a couple up myself. I'm going to be trying those out this spring. I've not fished with a marabou jigs yet for smallmouth, and I've even added a little bit of flash in along with that marabou, and a little bit of dubbing just to cover up some of my threads up by the head. So if those are effective, I'm going to be using more of those for sure. On to the next bait, and probably one of the most popular smallmouth baits for pre-spawn smallmouth in the spring is the old jerk bait. Some jerk baits that I specifically like are the Rapala Shadow Wrap Deeps, which I believe go to 5 to 6 feet or something like that. I'd have to look, I'm not sure, but these baits produced so many fish for me last year in the pre-spawn. Obviously people know that jerk baits are super effective. It's a bait that I'm really looking forward to using again, and so that I've stocked my box up with a bunch of them, because like I said, last year it was one of my most effective pre-spawn baits. So I'll be using a ton of jerk baits this year, and I really can't wait. It's going to be a lot of fun casting those jerk baits and giving a jerk and pause and a jerk and having a fish on. Ooh, that is the greatest feeling ever. I'm sure you guys have experienced that. That is such a fun way to fish. Last but not least is a blade bait. Something that I've not fished a blade bait for smallmouth before. I'm looking forward to trying it out. Here I've got just a gold bee fishing blade in a, I believe this is a 1/4 ounce. Blade baits are great all around baits, especially in colder water. So I think these are gonna thrive the best in the spring when the fish are pushing up to spawn and they're feeding the shallower waters before spawning. I think these blade baits will be producing a lot of fish in that time frame. And I think the best way to fish them will probably be bouncing them off the bottom and just hopping them along the rocks there, kind of like a bait fish or a goby might. I think it'll be super effective. That's not a bait that, like I said, have not fished that before, so I'm really excited to try that out too. If you have any questions about all these baits that I'm going to be fishing, some that I've fished before, some that I haven't fished, feel free to ask me down below in the comments. Obviously, I won't be able to answer every question you might have because, like I said, some of these I have not used yet, but I've done a fair amount of research on all of these baits that I have a good idea of how I'm going to be using them and when I'm going to be using them. If there's any videos on smallmouth that you would like to see in the future, please let me know because we are going to be having tons of smallmouth videos, my absolute favorite fish to fish for in the near future here, as it'll be the opening weekend in Wisconsin. So I'm going to be fishing right away this weekend for them. Going to be trying some different tactics, and we're going to see if they're even really in the shallow water yet. Probably not so much. The water is still really cold in Green Bay, so we're going to see, but hey, we're going to give it a shot. We're going to try to catch some fish. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you are new, feel free to subscribe. I would really appreciate it. But guys, until next time, we will catch you in the next episode of DC Bronzies. See ya.